World number one, Magic Carpetson is back at the board. He's in India. It's the Tata Steel Rapid. He's opening the game here with pawn to e4, best by test. His opponent here is the epic Vidit Gujrathi. This is round 3, rapid play chess, an understated, beautiful game. And apologies for the lighting. I've been kidnapped once more on a work trip till Friday. Let's crack on with the moves. Vidit now goes pawn to e5. Magnus brings out the pony and plays bishop b5, a tribute to Roy Lopez, J-Lo's uncle. Now we get knight f6, Ich bin ein Berliner. Magnus castles, the knight gobbles up the pawn here, and now you can go d4, take the ladies off. Surely we're going to see that. No. Magnus in the mood for this one. Kicks back the knight, it hits the bishop. Does he move it? No. Takes on e5. Even general managers sometimes leave pieces hanging here, but here's the trick. If you take the bishop, the knight moves, discovery, and you lose the queen. So that's why the bishop blocks that open file. Now Magnus has to move that sniper, retreats it all the way home with a whoosh, completely forgetting which way his pieces are supposed to move, and now we see takes on e5. The rook recaptures. Castles played, d4 for the score, and bishop f6, kicks back that rook. Epic commentary as ever here on Septic Cheese. Do consider subscribing if you haven't yet done so. We see rook e8 now played, challenging that open file. Magnus ignores it, plays bishop f4, and watch what happens, because after these leave the board, black's got the option to take this pawn, but do so at your peril, because bang, you get saddled with these double Ds here, then you kick away the bishop, knight comes out, and there's tons of pressure coming on these. You'll win back the pawn with interest. So that one not touched. Instead, this one backpedals to the Etienne back row. Now we see the centre defended. Lovely connect 3 and d5 for the high 5. Opens the bishop. Magnus carries on developing. So does Vidit. And look at that. Massive Christmas tree. Ho ho ho. It's on the way. And there's even another bishop on the F file. That's all 4 of them. Surely a cheat code to unlock something special. Magnus carries on the development, preparing to bring the rook into the game. Both players take a timeout to give the king some Lufthansa, and now he hits that only open file, firmly under his control. Small advantage, but not much. Vidit's solid, and he starts going for these piece exchanges, but Magnus wants to try and squeeze, grind like a grandma in the endgame, so he pushes forth with Gary the debt collector, kicks back the bishop after this exchange of pieces, and Vidit does not pick the right square. Should go to g6, bit more active, but he goes here, maybe worried about this h-pawn pushing one day, but it now gives Magnus a chance to just take a small initiative, and he does so by exploding the board with pawn to c4. We get takes there. These knights now leaving the board, the bishop streaming out, and although Magnus has left himself with an isolano here, not ideal from a pawn structure perspective, he's got activity. F7's under fire. So now bishop g6 is played, wasting a tempo. Magnus realises it, sits back, puffs out his chest, and he's like, do you even rook lift, bro? Look at the power of the pieces he's now stacking. King f8 from Vidit, just trying to absolutely bamboozle Magnus with a completely random move. But no, in all seriousness, after Magnus stacks the Tower of Power, we get Queen d6, and we start to see one of the points of King f8 supporting the e8 square. So Magnus pushes forward here with the juicers, trying to gain space, open up lines. Now we get Queen d7, hits the newly created weakness, and Magnus covers with the lady. Rook e8 now played, taking advantage of this, the control relinquished. Magnus pushes forward, bishop back to h7, it's bouncing back and forth, horrible pogo stick, and now I love this. Magnus Carlsen decides it's time to tickle Vidit Gujrathi, not literally, that's been banned for a few years now, far too much giggling going on. He plays bishop b5, and after pawn to c ships, bishop c4, just creating a slight change in pawn structure. Was it good? Was it bad? Well, according to the all-powerful engine, it's all still fine, but you should go b5, kick back the bishop, and then the queen laterally covers the a7 pawn. Plus Hikaru told me, already watched his recap, just nicking his stuff. And now Vidit makes a huge mistake here. You should never do it. He plays pawn to f6. Lord Hans Feingold not impressed, and it's a truly ugly move on the eyes when there's this bishop on c4. I mean, this takes some kahunas to open up the king like that. Lift the kill. So Magnus takes off the rooks. Now we see king recaptures, and he checks from down here. He's invading. King e7 and bishop e2 takes care of the g4 pawn, but there's a problem. This pawn's attacked. If you go a6 or b5 to defend it somehow, then the queen comes to h8. And you not only hit the bishop, but the pawn here. And that's the big problem. That's why Vidit goes bishop e4 to take care of this tactical problem. But Magnus now simply takes. This is a huge issue. This is one of the problems with f6. He's a pawn to the good. He's going to grind like a grandma. So Vidit goes bishop d5, centralising that wooden shield. Hits the pawn on a2. Magnus pushes, even though it was defended. Now we see f5, desperate to open lines against Magnus's king, and you can take. Best move, according to Stock Squid. But Magnus goes queen b8, given the miss. He wants to rotate to e5, also pressures b7, and the top move here is queen e6, giving the pawn with check, but then you're going queen e4 and you create this huge counterplay. White's still better though, but Magnus doesn't run into it. Vidit takes this pawn instead. Now he checks. The king slides this way, queen therefore laterally defending here, and after king h2, excellent move. I now hate this from Vidit because he's only got a couple of pieces on the board, right? Magnus's king also exposed. Look for tricks. There is no way that Ali Reza, for example, is going bishop f3, which is what Vidit plays. Surely you try and keep the pieces on, keep some complications. This endgame now terrible after Magnus goes king g3, attacks that pawn, king c8 now played, but what's this? Magnus Carlsen makes an over the board mouse slip, misses the pawn completely. His hand-eye all over the place, needs to start catching a tennis ball or something, train it back up, or maybe he was looking to dodge this queen h3 check. And also, excuse me, he sets up a threat now of queen f5, exchange the queens by force, and then you march in this way and go to Gobbletown. Population Vidit's kingside pawns. So that's why we see king d8 going away from that threat. And now you can hold the position with b4. There's some nice ways to squeeze. Magnus, however, takes the pawn on f3, given the question mark. Not of doom, but of questionability, something like that. It's late, I can't think. Now we get this check played. The king lands into a few checks. This is why it wasn't quite the best. You've got a choice of which pawn to take. Taking the a pawn, apparently the most ninja move, but Vidit takes this one on b2 and Magnus gobbles here. He's still in the driver's seat, a pawn to the good. Queen d2 covers h6, keeps d4 honest. Now the queen re-centralizes. Absolute white widow spider. We won't draw all 8 legs, but what a powerful piece. King d7, a5, squeezing, squeeze, like Gary Kasparov used to say. Something a bit rude, we won't repeat. And now we get queen d1, looking for the yo-yo perpetual check. So that's why Magnus goes f3. Queen c1 now played, still covering that h6 pawn. Vidit on seconds at this point. Magnus checks, the king steps. Now he is offered this pawn, but doesn't take it. Why not? I forget. Possibly you start running into perpetual stuff, I think. So he stays on the dark squares here. Now we get a check played, king h3, and again, you've got a choice. According to the Stockness monster, take on a5, give this pawn, it's your best chance. But then that one's running very, very fast. Looks terrible. So Vidit goes king d7. Magnus checks, king c8, queen e5, king d7. How are you making progress here? Well, this is the moment. It comes on the board, pawn f4. Magnus exposing the king, yes, but watch this. He gives a pawn on h5, sublime technique here, bringing the king into the danger zone, and now he invades with the queen, which still covers here. This one can run soon as well, and you've got huge problems. The black king can't actually move. You know, the king helps form a barrier, and the queen working together. This one about to drop, of course you can't push, the a-pawn's very dangerous. If queen b3 to cover like this, then you run into this kind of thing, and that one's just hopeless, you know what to do. Wherever you go, this is going through for a queen, or you're going to lose your queen, something like this. It's awful. So queen b3 just not working. So that's why we see c5. Ugly move, gives a pawn, but opens the queen to protect b7. Magnus gobbles it up. Now we see h5. This one check played. Now this pawn pushes. Magnus liquidates a pair, bounces back and pushes with c6, preparing checkmate in 2. So Vidit checks, bounces round here to cover the square, or does he? Magnus Carlsen puts the final touches on now by playing the check anyway, exchanging these, giving back the pawn, grabbing this one, accurate calculation at the death, because now he takes the opposition. And what to do? Wherever you step with that king, this is a sample line. This one goes through, you make the knight, and this is how the game possibly could have ended. The players would have repeated, no doubt, take it through to move 100, make an absolutely exceptional draw. I hope you enjoyed this game. Have a look at the video on screen for another epic game of chess, and thanks very much for watching. See you soon.